Good day, colleagues. My name is Possible, and I will be your tutor for today. For some days now, we have been learning ambiguity. And then we said that ambiguity is a phenomenon so far as linguistic unit or grammatical expression is concerned. And then this phenomenon hinders clear communication. It means that it serves as a barrier to communication. Whenever ambiguity becomes part of a communication, the understanding thereof is being distorted and diverted. Now, we are quickly shifting our attention to another important aspect of communication, of which we also believe that it distorts understanding. And that is the concept of dangling modifier or dangling modification. A little more light on dangling. In English, when you say that something is dangling or dangled, it means that it is hanging. It has been left in the air, or little attention is placed on it. It could be the fact that we have dumped it, we have refused to recognize it. That thing is being dangled. It is hanging. Now, when you talk about a modifier, we are talking about either adverb or adjective. So when we put the two together, dangling modifier, we are talking about what the modifier is actually modifying has been dangled, has been omitted. It has been refused to be submitted or to be presented. It means that little attention is being placed on what we are talking about in the question. This is the overview of the topic. However, to substantiate dangling modifier from ambiguity, this is the secret. Only one. We have seen that ambiguity, they are sentences or statements that has more than one interpretation, or that could be interpreted in two or more ways. If a sentence could be interpreted in two or more ways, then it qualifies to be under ambiguity, simpliciter. However, if a sentence qualifies to be under dangling modifier or modification, it means that there is no subject. The subject has been dangled. The doer in the question has been hung in the air. That means we have refused to present the doer. There is no subject in the question. So dangling modifier or modification is not difficult. Quickly, let's start. Another grammatical phenomenon that hinders a clear communication is dangling modification. Dangling modification hinders communication or clear communication. A pellucid communication. Pellucid. Pellucid. Clear. Pellucid communication. We are saying that it happens when there is no subject or doer in a sentence. So the situation whereby there is no subject is underlined or doer is underlined. And that ambiguity, we said that whereby the sentence could be interpreted in two or more ways. That was the key. But under dangling, we are saying that it happens when there is no subject or doer in a sentence. No subject or doer in a sentence. If there's no subject or doer in a sentence, then we are within the scope, we are within the territory, we are within the boundary of dangling modification. We are saying that in order to correct such sentences, how to tackle it in exams, how to tackle it in exams is what I'm emphasizing. In order to correct such sentences, always introduce a subject or a doer to the sentence. We have seen that the problem is the fact that there is no subject and there is no doer in the sentence. So in order to correct it, introduce a subject or a doer to the sentence. At the moment you are able to introduce a subject or a doer to the sentence, then you're good to go. Introduce a doer or subject to the sentence. And then we are saying that this part, I did it myself. It has been helping me over the years. When I was like you, it helped me. And then it is still helping me. I know it will help you, this part. I always use who approach. If you don't know anything, dangling, who approach will help you to solve a lot of questions. The question relating or posed to the correction of this problem is who. Who did what is in the question? Who performed what is in the question? Who is the subject in the question? Who is the doer in the question? Who approach? Who? So after reading the question, you ask yourself, who? If there is no doer in the question, then it is not ambiguity. It is dangling. The reason why I want you to know the difference between this is the fact that anytime you sit in examination hall and you're being presented with a question, Charlie, I'm telling you the truth. The ambiguity and the dangling modifier, as well as the misplaced modifier, all these ones will be messed up. Their questions will be messed up. You get about 20 questions being messed up. Dangling is part, ambiguity is part, misplaced is part. They won't categorize them all. So for you to know that you are within the scope of ambiguity, ask yourself, could the sentence in front of me be interpreted in more than one way? If the answer is yes, close up your mind from dangling and misplaced. If the sentence could not be interpreted in two or more ways, rather the sentence does not have a subject. If the sentence could not be interpreted in two or more ways, rather it doesn't have a subject or a doer, then you close up your mind from ambiguity and you shift your attention to the scope of dangling modification or modifier and just introduce a subject or a doer and off you go. You are done. That is all about dangling. No? It is not difficult at all. Just introduce a subject and then you are good to go. So dangling modification, let me give you a secret. This secret will save your life. This secret will save your life. It helped me. It helped me. I discovered it myself and it helped me. Most often, questions from dangling modifier or modifications, most often, questions from this part begins with to. It does not necessarily mean that it is always. Most often, questions from this part begins with to. I hope you are getting it. And then I said that such devoid a subject. When a sentence begins with to, most often under this topic, it doesn't have a subject or a doer. So do not worry yourself to look for any subject. When a sentence is beginning with to, of which there is no subject or a doer in the sentence, do not worry yourself to search for a subject. And I said simpliciter in law. In law we say simpliciter, simpliciter. Just introduce for one in the place of two. For one in the place of two. For one in the place of two. This is a secret that will save your life. We are done with dangling modification. That is all about dangling modification. Dangling modification is different from ambiguity in the sense that for dangling modification, there is no subject, there is no doer. But for ambiguity, the sentence could be interpreted in two or more ways. Dangling modifier or modification. Let us quickly look at some of the exams-based questions. Exams-based questions. Number 1. To work with a pianist, constant practice is of great importance. To work with a pianist, constant practice is of great importance. Look at it. It could be clearly seen that there is no subject in the sentence. If you look at the sentence, you could see that there is no subject. There is no subject. So using my who approach, I discovered for myself. Using my who approach, the question would be, who needs a constant practice in order to be able to work with a pianist? Who needs a constant practice in order? The order is O-R-D-E-R. It is not this order O-T-H-E-R. No, it is O-R-D-E-R. Correct it there. So who needs a constant practice in order to be able to work with a pianist? We can see the answer. There is no subject in the question. To work with a pianist. Who? Who needs a constant practice? A constant practice in order to work with what? A pianist. We don't know. We don't know the person. So simpliciter, we are going to correct it by introducing for one. For one. For one to work with a pianist. For one to work with a pianist, a constant practice is of great importance. A constant practice is of great importance. So that is question number 1. Question number 2. To get good grades in UCC, strategic learning is important. To get good grades in UCC, strategic learning is important. When you look at this sentence too, it could be clearly seen that in this sentence, there is no subject or doer. So again, in order to correct this, let us apply my who approach. And the question will be, who needs a strategic learning in order to be able to get good grades? Who needs a strategic learning? Who? We can see it in the question. So we just introduce for one. For one to get good grades in UCC, strategic learning is important. Let us shift our attention from the two sentences. If not, it might serve as a noise. You might probably think that all the sentences will come with to. No, it is not always the case. But I'm trying to let you know that as soon as you see to, that one day you are not supposed to think about it. Introduce for one. Let us look at the ones that calls for our attention or a typical application of what you have learned. one that calls for a typical application of what we have learned so far. Being childless for so long, the baby was welcome addition. Being childless for so long, the baby was welcome addition. Now my question is, who was childless for so long? Who was childless for so long? The question is that being childless for so long, the baby was welcome addition. So the question, who was childless for so long? You see that the subject or the doer is not in the question. So in order to correct this, you can use being childless for so long. The couple. You see that here we have implored. We have introduced the couple. Someone could make it the wife. Someone could also use the husband. Someone could also use the family. So here we are imploring a subject. There is no subject. So we are imploring. Imploring means we are introducing a subject on our own. Just that the subject that you introduce should be a subject that relates to the sentence. That serves as a proximate cause. Propter hoc, ego hoc, propter hoc, ego hoc, propter hoc. If this, therefore that. It's a Latin word. Ego hoc, propter hoc. If this, therefore this. So the subject you're introducing should relate. Ego hoc, propter hoc. Proximity to the sentence that you have been posed with. So being childless for so long, the couple found that the baby was a welcome addition. Being childless for so long, the family found that the baby was a welcome addition. Being childless for so long, the wife found that the baby was a welcome addition. Being childless for so long, the husband found that the baby was a welcome addition. All of them are correct, and you can't be marked down. Next question. Going through the lecture notes, the students I grilled you. Going through the lecture notes, the students I grilled them. Now the question is, who was going through the lecture notes? We have seen that the students I grilled them, but don't be confused. It could be that someone was going through the lecture notes and the students I grilled them. We don't know the one who was going through the lecture notes, but we know the one whose I grilled him. So who was going through the lecture notes? Who was going through the lecture notes? The who approach. It will help you a lot. It helped me. And I've been using that one to teach a lot of students for so many years, almost 6 years now, as at in the year 2023 that I'm doing this recording. I have taught this course for 6 years now. So please pay attention to this. Going through the lecture notes. Who was going through the lecture notes? So in order to correct it, introduce a subject. You can rewind the question by saying that the students I grilled him while he was going through the lecture notes. So now we have introduced he, pronoun, he. So we have implored this time round to ego propter hoc, propter hoc. If this, therefore that. We have implored that it was the student who was going to the lecture notes and then his I grilled him. Don't be confused. You can also use a different person. The students I grilled him while the teacher was going through the notes. That one also is a subject. The students I grilled him when the headmaster was going through the lecture notes. The students' eyes grilled him while the lecturer was going through the lecture notes. You can implore, but remember I've told you, what you are imploring should relate to the question. It must not be far apart from the question. Let it relate to the question. So we have done, that is the answer. The students, I grilled him while he was going through the lecture notes. So far, we have done dangling modifier or dangling modification. And we have said that the dangling modifier or dangling modification could be substantiated or differentiated from ambiguity in the sense that ambiguity is committed whereby a sentence or a linguistic unit or a grammatical expression or a grammatical statement could be interpreted in two or more ways or more than one way. However, dangling modifier or dangling modification is committed whereby a statement or a linguistic unit or a grammatical expression or a grammatical statement does not have a subject or a doer. Does not have a subject or a doer. Using this one, we also learned the secret of two verses for one. They said that all the dangling questions that start with two, you can correct it by introducing for one in it. However, the ones that do not start with two and they start with others, implore. But when you are imploring, make sure that it relates to the question that you are being posed with. Once again, my name is Possible, and I've been your tutor up to now. Until we meet again another time, I will say bye-bye for now. Make sure to click on the subscribe button and then click on the notification button so that anytime we upload such videos, you'll be the first person to receive them and watch them accordingly. I love you. Bye-bye.